We start.
Okay.
So I'm very honored to have a friend, an iconic man like Georges Kern with me today for these talks about our community. And let me introduce with few words, George, who I am and who you are. I'm the organizer of Passione Calcio, Passione Gallina, as many people know it. And George Kern to me is an iconic mentor, visionary guy. He's a gentleman, he's a great producer of great watches like Breitling in this moment, coming from a long, long experience. But to me, George Kern is also the person which is able to talk of everything in life. I can remember easily one night on drum, Eino Corrida, Charles Jankel's song, Patty Austin on voice. I can remember the wonderful premiere of Mon Chien Stupide in Zurich. So, George, you are really a multitasking guy. Yeah? Absolutely. Welcome to my seminar today. Thank you for the talk.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you tonight.
George, and first of all, how are you? How is your family? How is the business in general sense? Everything safe, and we try to go back to a normal life.
Yeah, I mean, no, everything is fine, and my daughter is with us. She's studying in Berlin, so she has been with us for a couple of weeks now, even though she's over 21. So it has been bizarre for her and bizarre for us, but we're very happy, obviously, to have her with us again. And yes, and I'm more and more confident because obviously the markets are reopening step by step. I think next Monday will be a big date and big day because many countries are reopening, I mean, full speed, like in Germany, for instance, or in Switzerland. Many restaurants are reopening again. So step by step, we're going to come back to normal life. Obviously, two big countries are still closed and in confinement, which are the UK and the USA. But I think there also, especially in the US, you will have openings by state. So a regional reopening. And I hope three things. I hope that people will be disciplined enough to follow the, rules of hygiene and of social distancing. Number two, I hope that so that we will not come back to a problem. Number two, that the business will restart, and number three, that the economic consequences of the shutdown of the last couple of weeks will not be as bad as what I actually fear. So I really cross fingers on these three issues.
George, let's go step by step, please. And point number one, after several years on a great watch company, you enter Breitling, I think now 2 years and a half, or yeah, almost 3 years. And Breitling, for everybody, was a brand connected to an article, to nav timer, the chronomat, and these things. Then you enter in this company. I know you since some years, and there is a great things that I adore about you, that you are a destroyer, rebuilder, rethinker. So you enter to Breitling, and in just few time, we arrived to premiere new watches, ocean watches, a concept about CO2, recycling plastic. So you really upside down the brands easily. How fun is, how tough is, and how energizing is for you.
So first of all, I don't think we take, or I'm taking uncalculated risks. So there's a process of, analyzing a brand. And I said that right from the beginning. Breitling was much more than aviation. We found actually also advertising of the 1960s where they used already at that time a segmentation we're using today with airline and sea. And talking about Passione Caracciolo, so Breitling had also many ambassadors in Formula One in the 60s, and even with the Chronomat, we were a partner of Renault in Formula One. And of course we were also in the sea element, if you wish. So Breitling was much more than just aviation, even though of course aviation is a key pillar of our history. And we relaunched last year For instance, the Avenger with great success. It's doing very well. And we introduced a more historical line with the Aviator 8, in particular two products, the Curtis and the Mosquito, which are doing also very well. So I think we came back to history. But of course, when you rebuild a brand besides such a strategic direction, you need to find a style. Okay, you need to find, you decide to go into three fields in order to enlarge your portfolio, in order to cover what the history was, in order to have a broader offering for your consumers. But then you need to find a style, an identity, a brand language, if you want. And this was more intuitively, okay? This was definitely more intuitive. So one part was more rational and one part was clearly more intuitively done. And here we defined a concept which we call modern retro. Why? Because I think in a digital age, people want an anchor in the past. I think we have so much to tell and so great designs that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but of course we want to do it in a modern way. And then the second thing is, luxury changed before Corona, and I think will further change or will be amplified, or the phenomena we've seen before Corona will be amplified, like luxury will become more inclusive, not in the way of not being expensive or not being rare, but more in the way how I talk to the consumer, like what I'm doing today, being on a live discussion with you. How do you create proximity with potential clients? But also, for instance, in our boutiques, we have this concept of, loft boutiques or industrial style boutiques with pool tables, with old Norton motorbikes, and all this is an expression of a brand. So inclusive luxury, I think casual is very, very important besides inclusive. And the third thing is being sustainable. I think it's super important in our days, especially after Corona, because now life will slow down. People will travel, at least for the next 2 years, travel less. We will have less Chinese tourists. People will be more local. Downsides of globalizations are being corrected, like bringing back production to your own country. I think proximity will be important, that you want to have also food and vegetables from farms which are close to you. And I read that the bioproduct sales did increase by 25% in that period. So I think there will be many things changing in terms of consumer behavior. And I think, by the way, also in terms of branding, if we go back to branding, I think many brands which were very cool in the past are not cool anymore. Actually, some of these brands might become super embarrassing. And I think even behaviors of consumers will become embarrassing. And all these excessive luxuries, this loud luxury, in a context not only of Corona, but of the economic consequences with millions and millions of unemployed people, will not be acceptable by the society anymore. So I think that there's a kind of evolution and
I totally agree.
Changes happening in the society in a way of reset. And the brands which were well prepared or which engaged in this change before the Corona events will, I think, enjoy a better ride after Corona. And this is why I'm so confident with Breitling that we will gain market share, because we will not be able to surf on a wave anymore. That's over. Now it's about fighting for market share of a probably reduced market. We are well prepared because we did engage in inclusive luxury. We did engage in more casual luxury, and I think we engage into sustainable luxury.
Can you explain a little bit better, please, the lovely project you are having about recycling plastics and cleaning the ocean, which is one of the projects where you are involved and you will launch with Breitling?
I mean, I think I have a green touch in my life since many years, and also my previous company, we turned it into a carbon neutral company in a couple of years, and this is something we want to engage, and we've engaged with Breitling. And one of the biggest issues of environment is plastics in the ocean, and in particular the microplastics, which you have from cheap textiles. 25% of the plastics you have in the oceans come from cheap textiles produced in Asia, and it's dramatic. And when you go diving, and I go diving here and there, you see destroyed coral reefs, also with plastic bags. I mean, it's horrible. So plastic is one of the biggest problems I think in the environment debate. You have to imagine that you eat already today through cosmetics, through food, because it's already in the food chain. You eat today roughly 5 grams of plastic per week. So you eat, Paolo, you eat 1 credit card per week. You eat 4 credit cards a month, which is dramatic because of all that crap which is in our food chain. So we have engaged into supporting NGOs fighting plastics in the ocean. So one NGO is called Ocean Conservancy, and then we work also with Kelly Slater, who is one of our ambassadors and part of our surfer squad, and he has a company called Autonon, which is a total I would say green company and working with recycled products. And one of the products is called EcoNeil. And EcoNeil is basically, funnily enough, produced by an Italian company. The producer is an Italian company. And what is happening is that they actually recycle lost fishing nets. So fishing nets are made of nylon. And there are you have to imagine, 650,000 tons of lost fishing nets per year going down into the oceans, which is a drama. And the beauty with this project is that we recycle this nylon, which becomes this garn called EcoNeil, and this is basically then what we call a circular ecology, meaning we can always recycle these straps. Okay. So meaning if these straps are broken for some reason, these straps can be sent back to us, and we can send it back to the producer, and we can do another product out of it. And many brands are working with EcoNeil, like Prada or Burberry. So it's circular ecology, and this is why it's important. So of course, Breitling, it's a ridiculous amount which we are using in our with our straps, with our NATO straps. But that's not the point. The point is that we can educate people, we can talk about it, we have an influential clientele, and we can contribute to solve the problem and not to be part of the problem. And therefore, we love the project. The only problem, and what people need to understand out there, is that ecological products or green products or sustainable products are unfortunately today 3 to 4 times more expensive than non-ecological products. So imagine we have these tons of fishing nets. So you need to have divers going down to get them, to get them up to the surface. You bring them to the boat. Then you need to transport them to this factory in Italy. Then you have to recycle the whole thing. So these NATO straps, which we are selling, we sell them for 150 Swiss francs. So let's say $150. But these are costs. And the normal NATO straps cost you nothing. I mean, 15, 20, depending on what the quality is.
So the question is also if the consumer is ready to understand, feel, and pay for this quality.
So what we have done, nobody's taking margin. So Breitling is not getting margin, and of course our retailers are not getting margin. But we have a story. Okay, we have a story, and this is, I think, that's our contribution to the whole situation.
George, to be in this situation so troubling, so changing, so challenging also, How much is an advantage for you to be in an independent company? Breitling is one of the few Swiss watch independent company. It's owned partially by CVC. You are also a owner. So this is something that I like to tell to all the friends when I talk about you. You take the risk to invest yourself in this company. So you are also a shareholder of one of that. So what does it mean? Is a chance, or if you would be an umbrella of a big group where you come from for several years of experience before, how do you feel about this?
No, obviously, I wouldn't have done it if I couldn't have invested. So that was the trigger for me to leave from a big, powerful, great group into a smaller independent company. But this is called entrepreneurship, right? And in whatever situation you are, in a big group or in an independent company, you have on both sides advantages and disadvantages. So the disadvantage is that you are slow, that you don't have less muscles and power towards the retailers, for instance. So you really need to be successful, right? You really need to have good products. You really need to be much better than the others for them to take you on board. Because on the other side you have big groups who can put a lot of pressure for the open to buys, etc., etc. So you have to be much better. On the other side, obviously, you're much quicker because you don't have all the structures, all
Yes, of course.
all the committees and all the slowness which are intrinsic to a big group, complications, politics, etc., etc. But bottom line, I think the process we went through at Breitling was super quick, super efficient, and actually we are super successful. I mean, I'm talking now about before Corona. Forget about these accolades which we're having,
Yes,
which we're all having, and the retailers love us because we, we're able to offer very successful products. The Premier, the watch you're wearing, the Panda has been a huge hit, or is a huge hit.
a panda for these two eyes, right?
Yeah. So exactly, we call it Panda, which is a historical, I would say, image and dial design of Breitling. So we have been very successful. Retailers love us, and of course they take us on board because we had a super strong double-digit growth, and we were one of the very few brands growing so much before the crisis. And I think everybody recognized also, during Corona, we did our first digital summit presenting our new products, and we had, we had hundreds of thousands of people following us. And overall, if I look at all the packages and all the messages we sent out during that day, we had over 2.5 million views or contacts with Breitling, which is incredible. So I think we've been able to create something quite unique, distinctive in the market, both in terms of positioning, both in terms of brand expression, as I mentioned before, and of course in terms of products. And it works. And I think in a group, I wouldn't have been able to do this, what we've been doing basically in 2 years, in 6 or 7 years, because the process it's much more complicated, etc., etc. But again, both sides have their advantages and their disadvantages.
Okay, we have the next 3-4 minutes together, so we go fast. First of all, let me say hello to a gentleman that wrote me. I'm a watch company, a watch shop in Remagen, where Caracciola was born. I say hello to this gentleman. I would like to say hello also to Marco Paroni, that is waiting for the Panda. Then there was a lockdown, so Marco from Julius Baer is waiting for his new watch. And Julia, which is the chief marketing of Pininfarina Autos, is online with us. And you are my third guest when I start this webinar. The first one was Jerome D'Ambrosio, Formula E Talks and Julius Baer. The second one, Nico Rosberg, that you know quite well for your former experience probably. And you are the third. So let's go fast. Formula E or Formula One?
It's a very difficult question because I have a emotional attachment to Formula One, from 2 of my previous companies, and I started my experience and my watch experience at Tag Heuer when, you know, we were linked to McLaren, and I've met Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Michael Schumacher. He was with Tag also, and then in my previous life, of course, Nico and Lewis Hamilton, and these were amazing experiences and great people, and I respect all these teams and these managers highly. And But the world is changing. The world is changing, and the question is what will be the future of Formula One. Formula E, you know, Formula E for the moment is and same thing. I've met all of them, obviously, because, you know, they approached us. Many teams approached us.
Somebody wrote that they are already on board with you, which was a
yeah,
news.
which is not the case. But even the organizational committees and the founders, etc. And same thing. I think I respect them very much, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I think for the time being, it is very much a kind of boardroom concept still, because it's not popular in the sense of that people understand who the drivers are, etc., etc. I think what is great is that these are city races, so you can actually animate cities and get closer to the population, right? To the people living there, and you have more or less free access to the track, which is very cool. But as much as I have a very strong emotional attachment to Formula One and I follow it, I ask myself what the future will be in a context of, you know, environment, sustainability, etc., etc., and what and how and if Formula E could, you know, take over or not, I don't know, and how this can be attractive. I think competition and racing will always be interesting and creates dreams and passion within humankind. And this is why, for instance, all the debates we had in Germany of restarting the Bundesliga was so emotional in a way, because some people said, why the hell would we start the Bundesliga when we're not opening the kindergartens? But, you know, I think humankind wants to be entertained, and I think in a confinement or in a difficult situation, I totally support the reopening of the football games and the restart of the Bundesliga, because people like that. You know, it's entertainment and passion, etc. I'm happy that I'm not in the shoes of the responsible people at Formula One. Neither of the teams, now that, you know, if you look at the difficulties all these car companies will have, you know, how can you justify to your shareholders that you invest 170 million or even more in such in such projects, whilst the traditional car industry will go or is already in difficulties.
Some numbers: 1,200 person around Formula One in Mercedes, 900 in Ferrari. I mean, we are talking about huge people around. Okay, we have a question from a gentleman, and I would like quickly: which dial is your favorite on the new Chronomat?
It's a salmon dial. I'm wearing today the blue one because I have a pink shirt. So pink, you know, I'm an aesthete, and pink doesn't work with salmon. But okay. I have many blue dials. So and blue over the last 10 years became the new black. But on the Chronomat, I think it was very difficult to make a nice salmon dial. You know, a salmon dial is very difficult. I'm trying since many years in many companies, and I could never find the right tone to make it look nice. And I think we have a beautiful, after many prototypes, we found the right tonality of that dial, and it's beautiful on the Chronomat, and it is beautiful also on the ladies 35 Navi timer, which is our latest product, which we launched this year. So because salmon actually, except now with pink shirts, works with many colors. You can wear it with blue, with many colors, with more classic suit, and it's something beautiful. And green became, I mean, we have the Bentley edition, which green is growing in the market. As I said, you know, in the old days we had black and silver, and then the second wave was the blue, which is actually bigger now in terms of sales than black. And now we have two colors coming, which is the green, and eventually, if you know, if we are trendsetters, the salmon.
Okay. Are you wondering to make and to produce a watch for bikers?
With
Because
cycling.
please explain to people how much you are involved in bikes.
No, I like cycling. I'm unfortunately I have 3 kilos more now since I'm in home office, because every time, you know, you go to the fridge, you eat something, it's horrible. You know, it's something you would never do in the office. So I'm doing this, and I gained 2 or 3 kilos, which is dramatic. So I'm so happy that on Monday we're going back to we're going back to the office. And the answer is yes. There will be something quite amazing coming in summer, very light. Because indeed, you know, we have a triathlon squad with Jan Frodeno, Daniel Arrive, and Chris McCormack called Maca, and these are great people. And when you are a cyclist, and I'm cycling, and you don't need to wear, you know, Garmin watches when you know the track, etc. And I don't have a watch I could wear from Breitling because it's too heavy. I don't want to wear a steel watch. So what you're going to have in summer is a product with a material called Brightlight, which we had 3 years ago on a pilot's watch, which we've stopped, but the material is very light and very cool, and we are launching, I would say, a professional watch in that sense for triathletes or for sports people, for outdoor, who don't want to wear the normal pulse watches you have, but, you know, something cooler and nicer, and we're going to launch that in summer.
How, and my last question before saying so many thanks, you know, George, I could stay with you long, but because you are really an inspiring person. You have to know this. You have to accept these kind of compliments, believe me. Maybe also because you are able to be with nice people around you. I read in an article that you like to have inspiring people around you, like a brainstorming, like a think tank. But tell me something about your fight and beloved relation with classic cars. I know that you have a lovely Lancia who gives you so much troubles in your heart, and another lovely blue car that I saw more driven by your son than you.
No, I love that's a very interesting discussion. Okay, it's a very interesting discussion, because fundamentally I'm more an aesthete. Okay, what does it mean? That some people, you know, I have also an old Ferrari, but of the 1979,
which is a Pininfarina one.
Exactly, and when I bought the Lancia, for instance, people said, "But why you buy that Lancia?" Or I have other dream cars which I would like to buy, like, you know, the Ford Mustang of Steve McQueen, you know, in Bullet, or I mean, I have a couple of other cars, but some people sometimes say to me, "Listen, but this is not, it will not grow in value." Okay, this, if you want to another car, you need to have that car or that car. Okay, anyway, then we are in 300, 400, 500,000 or even 1 million. But I want to buy cars which I like, okay, which I aesthetically like. And the cars I bought are the cars I like. And I never looked at the value. Sometimes I might be lucky, sometimes I might be not lucky. But
please remember that also your Lancia was a Pininfarina also. Huh?
Exactly. you know, sometimes you say, okay, but they made 50,000 of these, so it will never gain in value. Okay, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And but I understand people, but these are super specialists. Okay, these are super. I'm not a super specialist. I like to buy stuff also in art, which I just like, you know, and it's more an emotional decision that, of course, I ask questions. I've been asking you, I've been asking other people, okay, what do you think, blah, 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 who should I call, etc. But it's not value driven, you know, it's pleasure driven.
Very clear, and I know that it's true. And your son Alexander is very happy, so he can drive your car at Passione Gadina. Please let me know, Georges. Let me tell you something that I'm dreaming. Next year will be the 10th year of Passione Gadina, which is the second event I do with Caracciola. The project around Caracciola has a little stop, and we will start in 21. But in Gadina, for the 10th year, my dream is not to dedicate. You know that every year the event is dedicated to an Italian brand, Maserati, Ferrari, Alfa, blah, blah, blah. But my dream is to bring Pininfarina next year. So for the 10th year, to dedicate to the beauty of this incredible design and icon, because the elegance of Pininfarina cars are timeless, absolutely timeless. Like Breitling, some pieces of Breitling are absolutely timeless. Georges, let me say thanks for this.
Thank you.
Together. Sorry to keep you a little bit more.
No
but
problem.
It was so interesting, and
thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And saying hi to everybody, and stay safe and enjoy the next days if you are in countries which are reopening.
All the best for your dreams.
Thank you.
Grazie. Ciao, George.
Ciao, ciao.
I want to say thanks also to all the people, and we go back. Thank you very much to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.